This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Excited to be here.
Yay! So today we're going to start with a little game, get these creative juices flowing. We are going to do Pitch Me This, but we're going to do a little spin on it because of what you do. Normally, we have someone give us their 30-second pitch, but
Yeah.
I want you to market this. So specifically for Amazon. So what I'm going to ask you is, can you please market a hairbrush for chinchillas?
For chinchillas.
For chinchillas, specifically.
Okay, well,
Weird one. It's very niche.
yeah, we've seen a chinchilla, but I assume they're like a hamster.
They're
They-
kind of hamstery. They're really soft. They're kind of mink. Mink is made from chinchilla fur.
Okay.
That might.
So,
Sorry.
whenever we're going to market something on Amazon, we're definitely going to start with like a brand guide. Okay. Brand guide, product guide. Let's just say this is a brand with one product. Okay. For context. And in that process, we're going to come up with colors, themes, fonts, what do we want to convey with this product? And I think with this brush, we're going to go real organic. So like maybe like a bamboo-ish type of wood color as our aesthetic on the brush. Okay. And it's a super soft brush. So it's also got like a little feminine edge to it. Okay. So you're picturing that. And we start with the brand guide to kind of get this like look feel of what we're trying to convey. And then we go into what we call like an image plan. And an image plan is where we're determining, like, let's say there's 7 images on Amazon on the left side, like whenever you go to a product page. And then there's A+ page beneath the description. Well, what we're going to do is plan out that story of the product down those images. So each image should have its own intention. It should have its own its own relevancy to what we're selling. Okay. So a lot of times you're tying in the content, the bullet points along with the images when you're thinking about all of this. So, right, we're talking about selling a brush. So we're going to go through these images and really think about what are the things about the brush that we want to sell. So we want people to know that this brush is not for cats. It's not for dogs. It is for chinchillas. Right. So right away, we're going to talk about, what makes this brush different than a normal pet brush. And we're going to be talking about the soft bristles because specifically that's what we're selling with this brush. Then, image 2. So we're talking about like, this is just for that. So as soon as someone lands on the page, they're like, okay, this is what I was looking for. And if they're looking for a cat brush or dog brush, we also want them to know that this is not for you. So, we don't want any of those negative reviews or whatever. So image 2, we're going to go into the benefits of having a brush. Now they know it's for the chinchilla. Now we're going to go into the benefits of having a brush and brushing your chinchilla. So think less shedding, less dandruff, like less itching and allergies for the animal, like these kinds of things. So some like future benefits. And then we're going to go with the third one being like how it benefits you as an owner to have the brush. So maybe this is like a cleaner home, like the pet isn't shedding as much. So one is more about like how it helps the animal, and the other one is more about how it helps the owner. So we're 3 or 4 images in, right? We're going to go through and just keep talking about, we might talk about the origins of our company or why we're using certain bristles or bamboo or, whatever that is in our product line. So we want one product that really that focuses on us as a brand and why we're doing what we're doing to solve this problem. Like maybe we had a chinchilla that just always had matted hair and it really needed a brush, and there wasn't one that existed, and all the brushes that were out there like hurt her skin. So we had to make something super soft for our chinchilla. That is like kind of that origin story we want to hit, And then maybe our last image is talking about a product coming down the line or some other products we have in our line that we're going to be doing or some kind of way that we give back or some kind of feature like that. So really as you go through, you can think about it as like, first we're confirming that this is made like the product that they're looking for. And then we're talking about how this helps the animal and makes them kind of the hero. And then it makes the purchaser of the item the hero by being able to take care of their animal. And then we talk about, why we got into the business in the first place. That's the first time I've had to do that on a show. So
You did so well. That was wonderfully comprehensive.
thank you. That's a little bit what they want. So
Yeah, I mean that was a perfect plan for a hairbrush for chinchillas. I'm sure someone if you guys have a hairbrush for chinchillas, you can steal that. If Andrew
use
gives a
it. It's
suggestion, maybe you should copyright it right before this comes out.
right. Free knowledge. Just take it and run with it. So
That's what this podcast is for. So I appreciate the offer. Well, thank you again for joining me, Andrew. That was wonderful. And thank you everyone for coming on and joining us for the Fully Managed podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. Maybe they're a little more practical than chinchilla hairbrushes, but um I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Andrew Morgans, founder of Marknology. Thank you so much for joining me today again.
thanks for having me. I'm excited to just to chat. Sometimes we're talking Amazon, sometimes we're talking agency, but I think we're always talking, marketing and branding and content. They all tie in together. So it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So first, could you start by maybe introducing yourself a little bit differently than I would? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, what you kind of led you to this point, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I'm based out of the Midwest in Kansas City. This has been home. I grew up abroad in Africa till I was 16. Went to college in Hawaii, and then Kansas City has always been where family was. So ended up landing here. I like being from the Midwest. I think it's a great place to be from, as long as you get out and get to travel. So I think also when you're from here, it creates a different kind of marketer than someone on the East Coast or the West Coast. There's just a different culture here, I think that leads to that. Out of that, I guess I've always just been I was a musician for a long time, actually a full-time musician, and just got tired of being poor. And I had been going to school for computer science. That was I got out of school, got into networking, hated it. Switched to
Understood.
e-commerce like my second year. Took a chance at a startup, and this is like 15 years ago, probably. And I found e-commerce and just haven't ever looked back. I've just fallen in love with e-commerce. I love the creativity, the imagination that you can put into play, especially like online. Like we can make a new offer in 15 minutes and be selling it, which to me is just like incredible. Compared to like how long things used to take in the past, like to bring a product to market or something like that. So, 15 years in e-commerce in the Amazon space, building brands. I have a company named Marknology. We're a team of about 30 that help brands and sellers on Amazon, from, running their advertising to creating video, images, brand guides and kind of brand briefs, all the way to SEO, profitability on the platform, you name it. It's a whole ecosystem, just like a Shopify website or Walmart.com or anything else like that. You have the logistics part, you have the marketing part, you have the images and branding. So we help with all of that and have been doing that as a company for 11 years. We worked with brands all over the world from, Fortune 50 companies all the way down to mom and pops, like trying to sell their first chinchilla brush. That's a silly story, but that's very real. A lot of times we come across small brands like that we're working with that are really using Amazon to just get outside of their local reach. Okay, so I'm also a brand builder. I've got 7 brands that are e-commerce brands, not in the agency. So as much as I'm an agency service provider, I like people to think of me as a brand builder and an owner of brands as well. I'm going through the same struggles, trying to figure out the same things, new ways of offering things. I have a warehouse in 3PL. So it's all vertically integrated, if that makes sense. The agency helps me build the brands, the warehouse and
Mhm.
3PL helps us execute on the brands. So very much like all tied in together. What else? We're certified on Walmart, Amazon, TikTok Shop, eBay. So we like to call ourselves a marketplace agency, in that we assist with all of those things. Yeah, and just love building brands, love people, love helping people, um, grow their businesses and help them tell their stories with their products. I think I really enjoy problem solving and storytelling as a person. I'm doing Amazon and e-commerce now, but I think if anything was ever to change down the road, I would still be looking for some problem solving and storytelling. So yeah, maybe that's a different way of introducing myself, but kind of the whole story there in 2 minutes.
That sounds great. No, I appreciate that. And it's nice to know that you're so passionate about it, having had like such a journey up until this point, especially. I think that, and I think I might actually say this a lot, so maybe I'm being redundant on the podcast, but I think that people with marketing roles usually do not have a linear path often. And I love that because I think that there's so many different elements that go into the way you do things. And it's so cool and unique because everyone's so varied in their strategies and their backgrounds and the choices that they make in their role. And they can all be successful, but in very varied ways, and it's just
Yeah.
a great thing to be able to meet people like yourself that do something differently than maybe someone that I talked to last week.
I think that's what makes it so great. I would have never thought of being a marketer like growing up. That wasn't what I thought about being. Um, but now that I know more of what it is, and it's really storytelling, and it's what makes each team and I guess individual that's helping you create something or market something different is like that's what we all have that makes us different as a team or as an individual is like the stories that got us here and our experiences and those things, traveling, music, the arts, like all these things are things that inspire people. Maybe it's their dog, maybe it's their kids, like people have different things that inspire them, and it's really the culmination of all of those things that is what comes out of us as we create and market. So I think that's, they can have so many talented people and still have something that's special for each one because of it's really bringing our path or our experiences to what we're doing.
Yeah, that's the beauty of something that's technical like marketing, but also something that's creative because it's I know that there's probably so many roles in different spaces that you kind of have to do the same thing the same way, but marketing is so vast and different and there's so many different strategies that work for different brands or different companies, different products or services. And it's so interesting to see the way that people's brain think about doing that, and I'm geeking out a little bit, but it's just really cool.
That's a that's actually why, I came up with my name. I think everyone thinks I named it of the study of Mark or like something, I don't really know. Uh, but that's not the case. My name is Drew. It was really like I was, an e-commerce manager and was in the middle between the technology team and the marketing team at my first, like, corporate role as an e-commerce manager, and I would call something called the Marknology lunch when I was inviting both teams. Because I think to be successful in e-commerce today, like you have that marketing aspect, but you have to be technical as well. And it's like your ability to leverage technology is really whether you're going to be a successful marketer or not, in 2025. So that's a little bit of the name origin and how I came up with Marknology. But you said it perfectly.
I'm happy that you explained that too, because I'm sure the audience is questioning it, but so was I, and I forgot to
And,
ask.
11 years later, I might think of a different name, but at the time it was a domain that it was, if you make up a word, it's next to
It's
free,
hopefully not
next to
taken,
free,
yeah.
right? Like Uber or Bird or any of those things.
Mhm.
Without context. Martechnology, I didn't have to have the word technology and I was bootstrapped and trying to figure stuff out. And so I just made up my own word.
You know that Uber is a word, right?
It is now.
It's always a word.
Was it? Like, what does it mean?
It means like a lot, like a bunch of something. Like it is. I think it's German. It usually has the two dots on top. I don't know what those are called. So
Okay, so it's
technically,
not
I
an
think in
English word.
English, you're.
No, that's a stretch. It made me feel silly, but, like, I mean, I don't know
I
all of the
know
language.
what you mean. I mean, I don't think people were really saying it much in the states.
Yeah. Just like, you think of the powerhouses that exist like Nike
Yep.
and,
What's big?
what are these scooters called birds? Like, it doesn't really understand the word, right? So Lime, they just if you do the branding right, if you do the messaging right, you can call it whatever you want. Um, and make sense of it.
Exactly. So, you mentioned that you utilize multiple platforms outside of Amazon, like eBay and different things like that. I was curious, how do you make the determination of like what will do better on each one? Like, is it from their experience using those platforms already, or, like, what is your process for that?
Yeah, good question. There's definitely not just a black and white way of going about it. If a brand is already on eBay or TikTok Shop or something like that and comes to us and they already have experience, we're definitely going to take that into account, right? And why they're coming to us. If it's a brand that's not on any of them, generally Amazon is our go-to platform. That is our number one. It's one we have 100,000 hours of experience on, as the leadership team even. And it has the most customers and the biggest reach and all of those things. Okay. So generally it's Amazon first, but there's advantages on to being on Etsy or Chewy.com or TikTok Shop or what those are. So for example, just some examples, eBay, like games, automotive parts, vintage products, like things like that is a great play for eBay. There's a lot of new items there and they have ads now that people wouldn't expect. So otherwise, sometimes you want to be on eBay simply to protect your brand and make sure that there aren't some bad players there, like reselling your products off of Amazon or somewhere else,
Mhm.
marking it up. So for that customer, that brand protection, sometimes you want to be there as a brand simply to kind of keep those bad players. You can't police the channel if you're not there. So that's kind of some of the thinking there. Chewy.com is a great channel, but you have to be pet, right? Or Instacart is a great channel, but you have to be in local grocery stores. Etsy for handmade. Amazon has Amazon custom and Amazon handmade. I don't know if people know that, but they have these separate marketplaces that are kind of like you can filter by only things that are handmade or only things that are custom. Um, but not as well known as Etsy. Etsy is where I go. I'm an e-commerce guy. I go to Etsy to buy a lot of my Christmas gifts. Why? Because they're very unique gifts. Like,
Exactly.
and so Etsy is a channel that's great for like those unique gifts or those custom gifts. TikTok Shop, for example, is a great channel. It can be a lot of things. It's growing and maturing as we go. But imagine that you have like an invention product. Okay. Like you've invented something that no one's looking for. Maybe a chinchilla brush. Maybe there's no one looking for a chinchilla brush, but there are people with chinchillas. If you get it in front of them, they might be like, this is something that I need, but they're not actively looking for it. I think of like the fidget spinner. No one knew what a fidget spinner was until we saw one. And then you're like, fidget spinner is now, right? We all know what a fidget spinner is. But on Amazon to get sales is definitely based on what someone is typing into the search bar to then like get results for that thing. Well, if they're not typing in anything to find what you're selling because they've never heard of it, they're never going to come across you. Right. Whereas
Mhm.
on TikTok or Instagram, you can advertise in a different way. You can advertise by demographic, age, interest, people that have liked an ADHD post or people that have liked an anxiety post, or you could then show a fidget spinner, which is like to help calm people's nerves that are anxious or ADHD. Right. So in context, every channel, every platform has its own advantages and disadvantages. For example, launching on Canada, Amazon, while it's a little bit more work to go through their policies and exporting product and things like that, it's a lot smaller marketplace. And so if you're in a competitive niche, um, going through those hurdles to sell in Canada might be an advantage for you because there's less competition in there and you can like really start dominating a market like that. So there's a lot of factors at play. I think one way to start is to see if your competitors are there or people like you selling there. But also as someone that was at the forefront of like really the Amazon industry, like at the very beginning, a lot of the products and brands I was putting on Amazon weren't there already. So there
Mhm.
was someone ahead of me saying, yes, this is a good product to sell, go sell it. A lot of me and the brands I was working with were the first ones, like the first ones in that category. So that's not necessarily the case, but a good rule of thumb is, are there a few competitors here that are, like me, which shows that they've already been kind of pioneering that space.
So, or would you recommend that someone be in the space in which their competitors are in, or be in a different space so that they're tapping into a different space? Does that make sense?
I think a few competitors is a good thing. I do
Mhm.
think like, when I was doing Amazon in the beginning and selling Amazon services, no one having done it, like I had to educate the customers.
Yeah.
Like I'm educating them on why Amazon and you should be on Amazon. Look at the potential. As there started being more competitors like me selling Amazon, it was like a group effort to educate the masses, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. And so in some ways, as I got competition, it actually made it easier to sell my services. And I'm trying to relate that to like a product. If you can understand,
Yeah.
if like if you have several brands, you can get like a big brand. Let's just say you're in a product category where maybe there's like three competitors, and the main competitor is doing like tons of marketing, like just spending crazy dollars on TV, on all of these things. Well, if we sell a product on Amazon that's like it, maybe it's cheaper, maybe it's more affordable, maybe we have a couple different features. As people are being told about this one thing and they come looking for it, there's going to be an overflow onto your product simply by being close by. If there's 100 competitors, that's not going to matter. If there's
Yeah.
like three, it would benefit you. So it's a matter of like not too saturated, but a little competition is a good thing.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. It makes sense to account for the saturation, because I think that is very difficult in certain industries to kind of navigate around. And that makes sense to even tap into those other spaces like eBay or Etsy or whatever it may be, depending on if it makes sense based off of maybe the saturation on Amazon for something. Like, I'm sure when fidget spinners got really big, that was everyone was selling a fidget spinner on Amazon.
Exactly. But think of it like, you ever notice how like Walgreens and CVS, do you know what Walgreens and CVS
Yes,
are?
yes, yes. We have both of those as well.
They're always next to each other, like across corners, like on
Hmm.
opposite corners. It's an interesting fact. Um, and they both do well there. It's not like one cannibalizes the other. So there's something about understanding that this is a good area for this and they can support both, like the market can support both companies is something that's just like super interesting about human behavior.
I always questioned that growing up. I think that was what would make me a good marketer, is that I was questioning these things, because we had a McDonald's and a Burger King next to each other. And I was always like, Mom, why would they do that? I don't.
It's like no to one allows them to say yes to the other, or like
Mhm.
Chipotle and Starbucks, or people launch Airbnbs based on if there's a Starbucks nearby because they're like Starbucks has a reputation of doing crazy research around like the success of their stores. They don't close that many stores. So Starbucks, it's almost like you can piggyback on knowing that like Starbucks is going to do their research and know that there's enough customers around to keep their store busy and it's a good area for them to pick. And so by doing so, you can kind of piggyback on that company's research and knowing that they're only going to choose the best location.
That is genius. I had never really thought about it like that, of like that other institutions or businesses or companies do studies on their specific. I'm thinking about that for Whole Foods specifically, because I know they have a very particular demographic in which they like, people will write to Whole Foods in order to get them in their area because they want them so bad, which I don't know why. It's very expensive at Whole Foods. Why do you want that one?
Yeah, well, no, I don't think it's just about price there. I think it's about like food quality, or at least the perception of food quality, you know?
Exactly.
But I can tell you that Amazon, like retail is not driven in the same way that it used to be. Like the Home
Mhm.
Depots, like I've personally had brands that I've launched on Amazon that are now in Whole Foods. Like, and they got the Whole Foods invitation from success on Amazon.
That's
So
really
Amazon, and you can use this as a brand too. You can essentially market to an area or sell on Amazon, track, your zip codes where you're selling to. And essentially then let's just say you've been selling a food product on Amazon for 2 years. You've got a lot of data. You can then look at like where you're selling a lot of product by zip code, for example, and then approach grocery stores in that area and say, hey, I've sold to 5,000 customers in the last 24 months, like in your zip code. I think we would do really good in your store. And you're then leveraging your like online data to then make good decisions in retail and where to focus and things like that. So like it's really switched around a lot, like in regards to which one they approach first. And these retail stores are not making guesses anymore by having like buyers in those positions just saying, what product do we think is hot? Or what brands do we want to cover. Instead, they're going to homedepot.com, seeing what's selling well there, and then deciding that's what they want to keep in those specific stores. So it's just getting real data driven, and like really like it's a great place for brands to really get a start. But it's also like you have to do well to then get those retail opportunities. You need to be doing well with your e-commerce. Even if that's not your end goal, is like, let's say e-commerce isn't your end all be all and you want to be a retail brand, you still have to do well in order to get the attention of those stores.
Yeah, no, I never really thought about kind of intertwining the two, like using one to leverage the other, because that does make that makes a lot of sense, especially it shows that credibility of the business of being able to sell and that people do want this where and that just adds more income to, your whole
Less
brand.
picks, yeah, better. So the whole like Whole Foods is picking better items that they're already seeing get good reviews and good sell through, and they already know people in that area want them. So they're not picking duds. So they're like making less mistakes. And the brands are getting better terms often because they're saying, look what I've done on my own for 2 years. Like, we don't need you, Walmart, or like how it used to be when you like these brands would get bent over backwards, so to speak, in regards to coming into a Walmart or getting a Walmart deal or getting a Target deal. And now they're able to like leverage their own success or like kind of standing on their own feet when they make those deals and getting better terms. And I honestly think it's a great thing for the industry and allowing smaller brands to kind of stand on their own feet without just needing these massive retailers. You can see Amazon as a retailer, but it's not exactly the same. There's not like gatekeepers in regards to who can sell and who can't sell.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, you mentioned Amazon Canada, which I thought this was very interesting because one, I did not know that there was a specific one. Um, do you have to navigate around certain international differences or rules or whatever it may be for certain brands and how you approach marketing them? And how do you like account for this where well, one, I'm sure you have to educate yourself in a certain level to be able to do this. So what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually love it because it just makes me feel cool to like be
You're
selling
aware.
small brands all over the world, you know?
Yeah.
But if you know how to do Amazon US, it's the same movements
Mhm.
on Amazon Australia or Amazon Canada or Amazon UK or Amazon Germany or Amazon Italy or Amazon Ireland, Amazon South Africa. The same like images and content and SEO and advertising and these things. What changes is tax law. What
Mhm.
changes is like, tariffs. What changes is like in Canada, for example, a lot of products have to be in French as well if they have labels. So some products are harder, other products are easier. Like, clothing isn't the same as a ingestible item, right? Like a food item or whatever. But also some of those difficulties and those barriers to entry are great because if you're that type of, brand or team that where you're organized and paperwork isn't an issue and you're going to move through it, well, there's a lot of other brands that won't go to that effort. And so if you do, you're now like kind of creating a moat around your business.
Mhm.
There's also services out there that focus on translating listings and things like that, translating images to be in French or in Spanish. We actually have a bilingual team, so we
That's
cover
awesome.
a few languages just as a team. But like, and one other thing I'd say is like Germany, for example, selling in Germany. If you just use the same content that like, the images that are really communicating to the customers and you use those same images in Germany, you're probably not going to do very well. There's cultural differences, right? And the German customer doesn't like the fluff. They don't want the fancy emotional content. They want like details. They want facts. They want like what's in my product, what's in the box, what's it come with. Like just don't be fluffy. American customer wants to be sold to a little bit. We want to
You
be we like a good sell, a good story. So just a little example of like, how selling in the different marketplaces can be. It's definitely something to learn. But definitely like I've had German brands struggle in the US. I've had US brands struggle in Germany because they're just missing that ability to communicate, effectively.
That's kind of fun though, because you get to think about the psychology of it. Like every person is really very different. And so you have to figure out, especially a lot of people are just focusing on one, like customer base when they start, but then they realize that they can expand that and they have to account for all these differences is
Yeah.
I don't know, it's very cool. It sounds daunting, I'm sure, to a lot of people, but it does sound very interesting to be able to navigate
Yeah.
because
So
learn.
just to speak to some of it, just like because I think it's interesting, is like, half of my design team is in Colombia, the country of
Mhm.
Colombia. Colombia, as they say. Here in Missouri, we have a Colombia, so I just want to clarify. But they're on the same time zone as us. Bogota and Medellin are very similar to the West, very similar to the US in regards to the shopping that they have and the way that people dress and like style and culture. It's Spanish speaking, yes, but it's like the culture is not that far removed. There's a lot of like virtual teams or agencies that have teams in India or Pakistan or the Philippines. And just for like understanding kind of like what that looks like factually is there's a lot of Filipino that have never had some of the things that we have in the West.
Mhm.
Okay. A big difference in wages and things like that. Well, if you have a team in the Philippines trying to help you sell emotional content, like selling a backpack that's $250 when they've never owned one, it can be hard. There can be like a cultural
Yeah.
divide there. And so I think whenever you're depending on what you're doing, like not only like who you're selling to, but the team that's helping you do it is one, like, can they communicate? Can my American team communicate effectively to a German customer? I'm not sure. Like, so for us, like the Colombian team has been great because we work primarily with selling in the US. But there's like, Amazon Japan is one of the biggest marketplaces that Amazon has. Um, we I need help with that. I use a partner to help translate listings and help with the content and things like that because the Japanese culture is just far removed from our team and where we are, right? So there's just a lot of learnings around who's on your team, who you're using for what, and understanding that hey, some of us literally have completely different lives. Our normal day-to-day lives are just like extremely different than some of the people on our teams across all types of companies, and it's just a good reminder um, that those aren't bad things. Those are great things. They can make a team diverse, but also understanding that some things we take for granted are not so straightforward in other cultures.
Yeah, no, I think those are really important things to account for. It's especially, I've heard some very funny and scary stories about some PR nightmares when you're not accounting for cultures. Um, so I think that it's definitely something that people should read up on before marketing in a certain space, especially because it things can come off as offensive if you're not like it could be very normal and natural in one culture, but not in another, and that is
It's
something
subtle,
that
right?
yes.
Because at the end of the day, we're relationship building through like marketing is relationship. Like, you can relate it to, like, we're trying to reach customers, we're trying to keep a healthy relationship with them, that's why you email with them, that's why you communicate with them. Just as if you were standing in the store and selling it yourself and you're talking to them about your product, like, that's what we're trying to do in marketing, and I think at the core of every good relationship is authenticity and trust,
Mhm.
and so, if you're communicating, but, holding some stuff back, or you're communicating, but you're talking about something that they don't care about, or you're communicating, but you're missing some minor details that can make a big difference in another language, or certain things like that as examples. It's a relationship that's built on there's a certain level of mistrust because something just doesn't feel right or it's not being communicated right. And that's really the nuance is that communication and relationship piece and like putting in the effort, I think, um, depending on where you're marketing or how you're selling, even in the US, right? We have a bunch of subcultures here. And like, who are we selling to? Are we selling to Gen Z? Or we selling to millennials? Are we selling to baby boomers? And the differences in like getting their trust as a customer comes down to, you know,
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really one, we're a little over time, so I think that's a great insight to end on because, specifically, I think paying attention to that is really good advice, for some people that, might not think it's that different, but even I appreciate your, comment on the US with subcultures specifically because there are things that you really need to think about, and if you're in a specific headspace of only experiencing a specific type of culture or being in a specific interest group like that, where you don't understand, maybe a baby boomer might need slightly larger font, just based off of the idea that maybe their eyesight is a little worse because they're a little older.
yeah,
Um, It's like simple things like that can make such a huge difference because you just don't want people to click off of
Yeah,
the
and it's like they feel known because this fits them better, right?
yeah. And so thank you so much, one, for joining me and for providing so much knowledge. I really appreciate this. This is a more niche subject than I get into normally. So it was really cool to be able to learn about it. And selfishly, I love this podcast because I get to learn too. So thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Thanks for having me on the show. Been a lot of fun.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. We'd be nothing without you. So please check out other episodes and get to learn like I get to do every time. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.